Hello, my friend. On today's episode, I am speaking with Ben Pickard, and I'm recording outside, so you might hear some background noise, but it's a fantastic episode. He shares his experience managing his GM at his gym. He is a fantastic general manager who really runs the day-to-day operations, so he walks through exactly how he manages his general manager and really only spends usually less than half a day a week running his gym. So if you want to spend a little less time in your operations, a little more time working on the business or doing something else with your life, this is a great episode for you. Get a pen and paper ready and let's dive in. Hello, fitness business nerds. What's up? Welcome to another episode of the Business Unicorns podcast. I'm back with Ben. What's up, my friend?
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Good to see you, sir. Good to see you, sir. Before we dive into today's episode, I just want to give a quick shout out to our friends at Kilo. Our friends at Kilo are really the best in the business at making gym websites and connecting those websites to amazing gym automation software to help following up your leads even easier. I know we use them at Mark Fisher Fitness and at Business Unicorns, and it's really been a game changer in our ability to kind of follow up with leads consistently and turn those leads into paying members. And so if you need help with a brand new website or you need help with more automations to help you follow up with leads, go check out our friends at usekilo.com and let them know we sent you. The link is down in the show notes. Anything you want to say about Kilo, Ben?
Yeah, they've been great. Like knowing the Pete, Mateo, and John are awesome. Kalita's awesome. And I can't express how much better a Kilo website is than your average website, particularly if you made your own website yourself, which I strongly do not recommend.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, we love the product and we love the people behind the product. And that goes a long way in this day and age of being able to promote them wholeheartedly. So go check them out. Link is in the show notes. You won't be disappointed. That being said, I have one other kind of quick announcement before we start this episode, which is I'm recording this podcast outside, not on my regular microphone, just sitting out in the beautiful sunny outdoors. So you might hear some people or some dogs barking. Just know that we just didn't want to miss this episode. We didn't want to miss recording for you all. So we're recording it even though I'm outside. That being said,
Michael, tell us why you're outside at this
Oh
lovely
yeah.
place.
Oh yeah. So why am I outside? So I every summer go to Fire Island, which is a little barrier reef island off Long Island, New York, and I spend kind of long weekends here at a lovely pool beach house with friends. And so I was just here over the past weekend, and we're recording this on a Monday while I'm still here. And when I'm here on Mondays, I just work outside all day. And then during my breaks, I can hang with friends and jump in a pool. But I don't like it to get in the way of my actual productivity on Mondays and Tuesdays. So I like the ability to actually still record a podcast, even though I'm sitting outside, poolside. Yeah. So thanks for being flexible, Ben, and to all of you listeners for maybe having subpar audio. And it's worth it for me. I get to go jump in the pool after this episode. But I'm really excited for today's topic, which is all about you, Ben. We're going to talk about you. For those listeners who have not been longtime listeners of the podcast, Ben, probably about almost 2 years ago now. I'll let you tell the story, but since we've been doing this podcast, Ben has transitioned really out of the day-to-day work of his gym and replaced a lot of his day-to-day management with a GM, a wonderful leader. Her name is Alicia, and she has been fantastic at running really Ben's gym day-to-day for a while now. And so if you want to know more about that, we've recorded past episodes. We've talked about that transition that Ben went through, but what to do is kind of give an update about what it looks like today for Ben to have his gym really be run pretty full-time by a GM and what his relationship with that person looks like and how it all works. So before we dive into that, Ben, can we just maybe catch people up who aren't up to speed about what your journey has been?
Like from day one of my fitness industry journey? Really?
From deciding to hand over your gym to a GM like Alicia.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes more sense. The day I was born, let me tell you. So the reason I wanted a GM is I worked myself to probably beyond burnout. Michael would know probably better than I would because he was the objective observer during my roller coaster of a journey. So I've owned a gym now for 10 years, I think. I had to think about that one. About a decade. I've been in the fitness industry for a decade and a half. And I busted my ass, and we had some outrageous success. like not MFF level outrageous success. You guys truly are a unicorn in that regard. But we went from like 3 clients on day one to I think our peak at like 168 clients at like year 3, and we were doing really well. And then COVID hit, and my business got lit on fire, basically. As did many COVID gyms. I'm not trying to, this isn't a poor me moment, but particularly in Canada, I think we were shut down for like 16 or 18 of 24 months. And it's really, really hard to outmarket the local news being like, don't go to the gym, you will get COVID and die. So we were fucked. And you can actually look it up on a Lift the Bar podcast with, oh my God, Stuart something. I forgot his name. I feel like such a jerk.
Stuart from Lift the Bar. Yeah, is it? I'm trying to remember Stuart's last name too. We'll insert the audio.
Where I think I was like verbatim, if you gave me $50, I'd give you the keys to my gym. And I didn't like feel that way for months straight, but there were definitely days where I felt that way. If you had caught me at the right time, you could have got a free gym. And I talked to some friends who are more savvy than myself in business, including your wonderful host, Michael, and some friends who are not fitness related at all, because I find it very valuable to get a outside perspective. One of them whose job is being the broker of selling businesses. Like if you want to buy a business, you can hire Rob. Rob will be your real estate agent for your business acquisition or selling it. And another friend who's just like a serial entrepreneur that has, I don't know how he does it. He's just in miles and miles ahead of where I am. And they were both like, well, shutting down your business is dumb because you have debt, i.e. the rest of your lease. So if you want to sell, you need a manager, because the only people who will buy a gym that doesn't have a manager are people who are interested in fitness and have money. And that's not usually a lot of people. But if you get a manager, now you just have people who have money. And they're like, and if you get a manager, you might be able to work yourself out of the day to day. So my thought process is, regardless what I want to do, my next step is get a GM anyways. So that's easy. The first step, regardless of the path, is the same. It's easy to walk a path. Fast forward beyond there, I had a couple different GMs that, due to my own lack of leadership, more like exhaustion actually, like didn't work out, and there were some expensive lessons. But then 2 and a bit years ago, May of 2022, Alicia started, and she actually was not in the fitness industry at all. She played really high level soccer in Canada and the States, but she was the manager at a local McDonald's. And in my previous managers, I was looking for a few different things, because as you know, being a gym owner, you have to be a jack of all trades, but you also have to be more than a master of none. We need to sell, we need to train, we need to deal with customer service, we need to lead our team, we need to make SOPs, we need to know how to pay taxes. There's all sorts of things that need to happen. And I had tried fitness people who had become managers and they didn't work out. So I had a moment where I'm just like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's get someone who actually has management experience, and I'll train them the fitness stuff. Kind of like elevating a client to a trainer. You can either look for a certified nice person who's also got their CSCS, or you can find a certified nice person and train them how to train people to squat. So I did that. And it's been great.
I love that so much. I just want to pause and just slow clap for the idea of hiring someone who came up through a really rigorous management training program like McDonald's, right? People don't underestimate the amount of money. I'm talking about millions and millions and millions of dollars over decades that companies like a McDonald's spend on how to train their people, right? So if you make it through all the levels of getting raises and promotions at a place like that, and to come and run a location like a McDonald's, you've gone through an epic amount of training. And I might even say some of the best kind of management training on the planet, right? As opposed to working for smaller mom and pop shops, which, we as small business owners, we try and do our best to train managers, but we certainly don't have the kind of infrastructure or investment to make in creating really world-class management training. But to hire someone who came with all the management experience, knows how to actually manage people and processes, that's huge. You can teach them all the gym stuff. But I just think that's such a brilliant part of your decision making here. I wanted to shout it out.
Okay, well, yeah, I think I'd like to take full credit for the fact that I had this genius idea and executed on it. But I think it was after failing it,
right? that's the
Yeah.
thing. It's like you were open to trying something new, and that's the openness that I want to applaud. It's like, what about hiring someone like this? And you were like, yeah, let's try that. Most people wouldn't, and so I think that part is just so valuable. But let's flash forward a little bit, right? So you've onboarded Alicia, and we've covered that in past podcasts about like what that process has been like. But now, like you said, it's been about 2.5 years. So I want to talk through for all of our listeners who are maybe in the same shoes as you, or maybe hope to someday be in your shoes, where they have a GM who is really kind of running a lot of the day to day. What are the primary touch points you have now with Leisha on like a weekly or monthly basis?
Yeah, primary touch points over time. Yes, so we have our version of a mission control meeting, which is part of something we teach at BFU around how to the framework to run your business. So we have a very structured meeting every Tuesday. It is basically non-negotiable. We realistically probably do 49 or 50 of them a year. Like we didn't do one last week. She was on vacation. But like a good example of how important this is we do it on a Tuesday because I'm rarely gone on a Tuesday. Tuesdays are not long weekends, maybe Christmas. Like this meeting is the most important thing I do at my gym every week. And we have a very structured agenda for a 90-minute one-on-one. So that's my most valuable touch point because anything that needs to be discussed, it goes in that agenda to be discussed. And we've got a structure for that. In addition to that, I'm also like available on Slack. I do not mute my notifications, which I don't recommend, but I also don't get very many from my business because I've trained Alicia so well to handle all the stuff. And props to her. She's also a fucking killer. So I can't take all the credit. On a monthly basis, part of that weekly meeting is reviewing like our monthly metrics. So that would be things like money, and we have like we'll call like a month end report. So we go through kind of finance and deeper metrics, like how many people do we sign up, how many converted, what's going on. And then once a quarter, me and her do quarterly planning together. So we do that in about 3.5 to 4 hours every quarter. And then I guess like shit comes up and we'll have a phone call. Like that happened this morning. We were on the phone for 10
Yep.
minutes. But it's basically Slack me if needed, call me if there's an emergency, weekly meeting that's non-negotiable, quarterly meeting that's non-negotiable.
Yeah, I think that's so clean and clear. I'm just going to repeat it back because I think for our listeners taking notes, it's useful. Like, if you have a question that pops up, put it in Slack. I'm around, I'm listening, I'm available, I'm here for you. If something's really emergency, call me. I'm here. I'm also the buck does stop with me. I am actually responsible for anything that goes wrong. So let me know. We have a weekly meeting, non-negotiable, always got to happen. I love the idea of having like on a Tuesday when almost no one's ever going to be on a vacation, from a long weekend or something. It's really important. And then I love that you always are committed to doing quarterly planning together because, just keeping your finger on the pulse of where are we heading, is what we're doing working, all that is so critical. So kind of walk me through, what are some things that you do in that weekly meeting versus some things that you do in your kind of monthly or quarterly touch bases? I know, of course, I know the answer to this because I think I could probably guess exactly what your agenda is. But for our listeners, what
You
do you
probably
do
helped me make
weekly
it.
versus monthly or quarterly?
Yeah. So without going through like bullet point by bullet point, here's my agenda that leaves people hanging, kind of give the like, here's the outcomes we're optimizing for in each meeting. So the weekly meeting is really based all around our weekly metrics. So we keep a scorecard, also known as a dashboard, that says things like how many leads did we get? How many people did we convert? How many active members do we have? How many cancellations do we have? We have some metrics for our team in there as well. And Alicia's accountable for all of those metrics basically on the week. Well, yeah, all of the metrics on the weekly dashboard she's accountable for. So she puts those numbers in before our meeting. I review those numbers. We discuss what's on track, off track, or what needs to happen with that. So that's kind of like the main agenda item, or the first main agenda item. The second one is talking about our quarterly projects. So as per quarterly planning, we choose what are our top 3 to 5 initiatives for the quarter. Each initiative is given a captain who's accountable for getting it done on time. And we just make sure that we're on the same page with that. So for instance, one of the projects this quarter is we're raising our rates as we recommend you do every year. And I'm not exempt from that recommendation. So me and her are thought partnering, like, do we raise this? Do we raise that? Do we change this? That type of thing. So we'll discuss the things that need to be discussed for the quarterly projects. And then it's really talking around like, how are our members doing? How are the team members doing? And how is our marketing doing? So it's like,
Yeah,
it's
it
the,
is such a
it's
great
the,
weekly agenda. Yeah, I know that we talk about a lot, like our frameworks for unicorns process and how important it is to have this kind of weekly meeting pulse. But I think when you get to the place that you are, where you have a GM who's literally the person in the building every day who is running things on your behalf, this just 1 hour or 90 minutes every single week can be so critical to making sure they feel supported in doing their work with confidence, right? That they feel like
yes.
they have all of the power they need, the authority they need, that they're clear on what you have a shared vision with them. And then every week you're there to offer support and guidance and celebrate their wins, help them problem solve. And I think, this is the way for many listeners to really get out of the day-to-day of the gym if they want to, is to have a system like this that makes sure that every week when you and Alicia talk, you're talking about the most important stuff. So I think it's really just so smart. Anything else you want to say about the kind of weekly touch points?
Yeah, I do want to kind of plus one what you said about giving them the support. So, like,
Yeah.
in a vacuum, meeting once a week doesn't, to me, feel like I'm offering that much support,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, especially in a gym where we're open from usually like 5 or 6 a.m. till 8 p.m., 19 days a week, and we see people and shit comes up and clients have needs. Like, a once a week meeting, I had a lot of self doubt that, like, is this enough? And we worked our way there. But Alicia's been very clear from literally the first interview that making sure she has support and ongoing growth are the two most important things to her. And when we do our quarterly reviews, I also do a quarterly review with her. I forgot that in the touch points, but it's in one of our meetings. She consistently has given me very positive feedback of how supported she feels at the gym, which is hilarious because, like, hilarious, like a laughing at my guilty self, hilarious, because in my head, I'm like, I'm not doing a very good job. But the reality is, when you actually have a structure, then it makes it possible to get out of the day to day while still giving that person support rather than the system for running my gym with my managers. I see them every day and we talk about problems. That's not a system. And if you want to pretend it is, it's an awful system.
Yeah, I wanna agree like with 120%. I'm just aggressively agreeing with you today, Ben. Which is, it's not just you that offers support; it's the system you make. Right, the system is the safety net. Right, the consistency of we talk at the same time every single week with the same agenda. That agenda helps us focus on what matters most. It's that system that if tomorrow ownership changed hands and a different owner came in and ran that same system with Leisha, which they totally could do, I bet that she would feel just as supported. There'd be, a transition time, of course, but it's the
Yeah.
system itself, right, that creates a sense of it creates a kind of an embrace, right? I'm comforted by the system and structure of the process, and I think that's hard to overestimate how important that is. Let's just take a moment to contrast that kind of weekly touch base with a clear agenda with what you do on like a monthly or quarterly basis. What are those
Got it.
things you're touching base on?
Yeah. So the monthly meeting, admittedly, it happens in the weekly time slot. We don't have a weekly meeting plus every 4.3 weeks another meeting. We just have a slightly different agenda. And that's mostly reviewing financial things. So, in addition to our weekly dashboard, we also have a monthly dashboard that includes, like, how much money did we make by service? What's our average revenue per member? Like a monthly view of some of the same metrics that we look at weekly, like leads, conversions, etc. Our profit margin, our expenses. I break down our expenses into a few different categories, like people and non-people, like we recommend in Unicorn Society. So we go through that. We want to make sure our, like, monthly retention's on point, our margin's good, how's our profit first numbers looking. So it's not drastically different, to be honest. It's probably an additional 10 or 15 minutes max, depending on how the month went. Like, if it went terrible, we want to know what happened so we can change. If it went really well, we want to know success leaves clues. So that's kind of just like a deeper dive into different metrics. The quarterly
I,
meeting.
I'll just
Go
say
ahead.
this, can
Sorry.
I just jump in and say that I think one of the things that you said but didn't use these words is that weekly is really based on like kind of weekly actions and kind of weekly
Yes.
outcomes. And once a month, you're actually zooming out and talking about monthly outcomes. You're just talking a little big picture about profitability and total revenue. And I think that is a really good distinction, right? Because it's like taking a microscope, and every week you're focused on the next week. Right. But then once a month, you got to zoom out and focus on last month and the next month. And same thing with quarterly planning, which we actually just recently dedicated a whole podcast to. So y'all should go back and listen to the podcast about the value of quarterly planning. So then, excuse me, doesn't have to go back in and say much more about that. But that's the next level out, is like once a quarter, you're zooming out and reflecting on the past 3 months and then the next 3 months. And I think we broke down that process a lot in the
Yeah.
last episode. But yeah, any other distinctions you want to point out between this like a weekly, monthly, quarterly pulse?
Like the main distinction is that I think the thing that's common across all of them that's also a distinction is we have a very clear agenda that we follow 99% of the time. Yes, I can ramble or Alicia can ramble and we have to cut each other off, or we get caught up talking about our most recent vacation. Maybe can we do our jobs now? But like, we both have the agenda up. We both reviewed it in advance. We both did our pre-work. We both know what's coming. We both audit our issues and opportunities. Like, it's not just, hey, can I talk to you for a second? It's like, hey, let's do the thing that we came here to do. And it's different agendas for weekly pulse, monthly pulse, quarterly pulse. Quarterly is way different than weekly and monthly, as you can hear in the other podcast. But I have been convinced that a meeting without an agenda is a waste of time, unless you're just catching up with friends. And that's the case. Have some,
Yeah, of course.
whatever together.
Go to lunch, have some guacamole, and catch up with friends. That's not a meeting. Yeah, that's amazing. All right, well, let's wrap up here because it's getting noisy where I am, and so people are going to start to hear some music and more dogs barking. But to wrap things up, what tips or advice do you have for folks who are on the path to getting a GM to run their business every day, or want to look for that kind of next level of kind of consistency in how they manage their GM every day? What has kind of been most important for you in having success in this project?
Lots of things, probably. That's a really good question. We need another podcast just for that. I think the most shit. I'm stumbling with this because I'm trying to not make this the worst answer ever. So I think the first thing is being really clear on what you want. I told Alicia that like I need someone to run this gym because I've got this opportunity with Business for Unicorns that lights me up, and I'm good. Like even when she was being onboarded, I'm like, I'm unavailable on these days a week, so like here's what you do on those days. Like from day one, she's been crystal clear on that I want out of my gym, and I think that's really important because my second point, and I ran the numbers and made sure it fit and did my research with comparable market rates for her and all the things, but like literally from day one, I've been telling her what I want. The second thing that's been really valuable for me is the ongoing process, which I think I'm probably 80 or 90% of the way there, of separating the logistics from the emotional. I have days where I'm like, shit, am I doing a good enough job at my gym? Am I a good enough leader? I don't know. I go into the gym and I'm like, who's that client again? And I have to whisper to a coach to go say, hey, Sally, great to see you. Have I met you before? I need to introduce myself. So I've got some weird emotions with it that sometimes are also like, holy shit, we made a bunch of money this month and I didn't have to do anything. That's not entirely true, but it's pretty close. And the tactical of like, how do I lead? What problems need to be solved? When do I step in? When do I delegate what responsibilities? Who's accountable for what? And I just want to say that if your identity, like mine, is a fitness person who became a fitness business owner and that is who you feel you are, you're going to have some fucking feels about having somebody else like hold your baby, because they're going to be holding your baby and raising your baby and deciding what food it should get and how much screen time it should get for hopefully like multiple years. And you're going to pay them handsomely to do so. And that I'm glad I've done in my business that have gone against what my emotions have thought I should do when they said you need to run and hide and be scared.
I think that was a great answer. I think you crushed it. I think that if I was to summarize the two most important things here, it's really about being clear about what you want, making sure that's clear to your GM, what your offboarding ramp is, or how much time you're willing to invest in your business, what you want from them. That clarity is like essential as a chef's kiss for those of you who aren't watching the video. It's a chef's kiss, perfect. And then the second piece of really that identity shift that you have to make to go from someone who's needed every day to someone who's maybe not needed every day, to someone who maybe doesn't actually get to weigh in on every decision every day. And that process of kind of letting go and really truly empowering them to make decisions, including wrong decisions, including decisions that cost the business time, energy, and money. Hopefully not too many of them, but they have to be able to make some decisions if they're really in charge every day. That's a hard transition. And the fact that you've really done a good job of separating fact from fiction there, I think, is really, really valuable. And I'm sure we could dedicate a whole whole podcast, like you said, to just talking more about some of those transitions. But let's leave it there for today, because I think that's a great answer, and it probably leaves our listeners with a lot to think about. Thanks, Ben. Thanks for opening up and sharing your experience about working with your GM. Alicia, you're a badass. If you're listening, you're the greatest. Thanks, thanks for being such a great GM for Ben. And let's leave it there. I'll give a quick shout out again to our friends at Kilo. Any of you out there who are looking for a great website for your gym and some great marketing automation to go with that website, go check them out. Usekilo.com. Links down in the show notes. Thanks, Ben. I'll see you on the next one.
Thank you.